Hi, MInesh Baxi here, and I have a young entrepreneur here with us who's helping a lot of companies in the area create a brand so that people can be recognized the way they want to be instead of just whatever the perception of people is. So, Spencer, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Minesh. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I actually started off in the clothing space. So when I was 18, I started a clothing business, which was sportswear, because I kind of grew up in the fitness industry. And through kind of marketing my own product, because, when you're 18, you're starting a merchandising business, you don't have a whole lot of capital to work with. And so I ended up kind of investing into camera gear and kind of basic content creation equipment to help me market my clothes. And I was working at a gym at the time, and kind of how it all started, how I got into the business I'm in today is when I was marketing my own brand, I started to become the social media manager of the gym I was working at. And just through, self-teaching, self-taught and practice, I should say, I ended up kind of learning the art of branding and content creation. And I started a digital marketing agency in late 2017. And since then, we've kind of went solely towards content creation. So now we work with marketing companies and kind of B2B organizations on helping their clients and also just small business owners in general really create a dynamic brand and something that's attractive to the consumer. So.
Very interesting. And again, I love listening to young entrepreneurs because here's what it is. You bring energy, fresh way of looking at things and so on and so forth. So for some of the audience, they may not really understand at this moment, and I'm sure most people do in general. But today in the internet, it's a level playing field from one perspective.
Right.
You can create a YouTube video as an example. You can create a presence on Facebook, LinkedIn, or anywhere else, and you could get your message out relatively quickly compared to what other people could have. So it doesn't matter how long you have been on YouTube. It doesn't matter how long you've been on LinkedIn, social media, or any other platform. You have the opportunity to actually get your message out the same as everybody else does. But the difference is content.
Yeah, I think volume of content is number one, and then also just how viral your content can get, which is hard as a small business owner because you're promoting your products, right? But just like you said earlier, the internet has pretty much created an element where we can all stay connected to each other for free. So you don't really have to spend millions of dollars in marketing in order to build a brand. You can do it easily. I don't want to say easily, but for free through the use of social platforming, which is awesome. So
exactly, but content is different. Like, for example, we had a guest here who has been on Guinness Book of World Records and all that kind of stuff. So the value of the content makes the person who is watching it, listening to it, reading it, suddenly makes their interest either more or less. And if you don't have a strategy on what that content is, people are not going to get the message that you want them to get. Would that be right in saying what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. So basically, when you're creating content, you want it to do really one of three things. You want it to either educate, entertain, or be emotional, because those are the kind of elements that will keep people engaged. And if it's not any of those things, then people just don't really care too much.
So let's just repeat that, because I think that's good value. Educate, entertain, or be emotional, which are the 3 E's in a way to say that, which is easy to remember in my opinion as well. Keep talking. That's great information for people to watch.
Right. Yeah, and I actually have a couple of points here. I want to make sure I was prepared prior to getting here, because I think in today's conversation, I want to make sure that value is delivered to the business owner.
Correct.
Right, or whoever actually needs branding, which is basically everyone.
Everyone.
Even if you don't run a business, there's still an element of personal branding that you have to have in order to really compete in the world. So,
correct.
There's a lot of different ways that you could kind of go about creating a brand, and I have 5 tips that I think will help most people, I should say. You might already be doing them, but for the average small business owner, I don't think that they are. So the first thing that you could do is you could just outsource the actual content, which is probably the easiest thing to do, just because you probably know more than any of us that the amount of time it takes to actually create all the content necessary for a brand to be successful it's very time consuming.
It is.
And if you don't necessarily have the creative eye or the ability to really make your brand look different, your products look different, or come up with the creative aspect, even just product innovation, then that's something that you should probably look to either a creative agency for, or if you're big enough, hire an internal person solely for making your brand more creative, I should say, or
very true.
The brand building element.
Correct.
So I'd say the simplest thing is probably just to outsource it or look for somebody to do it for you, especially if you're running a successful business. You don't really want to be spending all your time focusing on editing,
And that's not your expertise anyway.
No, for the most part, it's not. It's not, right. I still spend
not
a lot of
you,
time
but
editing.
I'm saying, but other people who are watching, it's not my expertise. Why should I spend my time doing it?
Right.
And I remember I was working on a web page, and I was just launching I was just learning, and I was frustrated. And then I found out all I needed to do was look for a certain button, and I click, and I spent 30 minutes looking for that information.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's time consuming, and it's probably best if it's one thing you don't have to think about, So the second thing is you want to be creating more videos than anything, just because that's the most engaging form of content that there is.
Which is why we are here.
Yeah, basically. This is why we're recording this too. Photos are okay. Graphics are okay. Audio content's good too. But videos is pretty single-handedly the most dominant form of content that there is, just because, once again, you can deliver those three things a lot easier. So the educational element, the emotional, or the entertainment portion of it. If you're good, you can do all three in one post.
Correct.
Right? But you definitely want to be creating more videos. I usually say 2/3 video to 1/3 in everything else. So,
interesting.
That's just what I found kind of works well with my clients.
Sounds like a... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to necessarily follow that plan, but we focus on 2/3 videos, 1/3 photos or graphics. So the next thing you should do is just create a calendar. So what I like to say is, when you're starting a business, you're not just throwing things against the wall hoping that they work. I mean, maybe if you're starting out like I did, that may be the method of the madness, right? But you want to make sure that there's a system that you can follow to the point where as you're creating content, you can actually see what posts are doing well. And it just becomes easy. You don't necessarily have to think too much about what type of content that you're creating or your team is creating. So usually whenever we sit down with a client, we focus on, okay, on Tuesday we'll post this video about this topic, or Friday we'll post a new product that the business just came out with, or something along those lines. It depends what the brand is.
Absolutely.
But we usually always sit down, come up with a content calendar to not only help the business, but just make sure that the processes that we're implementing it's easier to follow, I should say. So that way there's not any kind of mishaps down the road. Number 4 is volume. So we want to make sure that, and feel free to kind of interject as you please here, MInesh, but a lot of brands, they're still kind of caught up in the aspect of making everything seem perfect. In reality, you have to make sure that you're promoting more rather than less. And I think that there's a balance here too. You'll see some people that are crazy overboard on it, and they're like, post every single hour. And I think that, once again, kind of going back to point number 1, that can just take a lot of time that you don't really need to be spending. We don't really post any more than once a day with our clients. That seems to be a great level for the average small business owner. That's a good amount of content that's being created and kind of being promoted. And you're not going to become irrelevant by posting once a day.
I totally agree with you. And my goal actually next year is to have 500 interviews.
Okay.
Now, this is one of the videos that we are doing. I have another, because I wrote a book called Stop Hiring Losers. So I'm going to be starting a podcast on building winning teams.
Right.
Because that's an area that I've been an expert for a long time. But again, like you said, the volume does make a difference. If I have 500 interviews out there, I'm sure somebody's going to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And I think, I don't think it's a bad thing to focus on your content. So I don't want it to seem like you just want to throw trash out there. But,
No.
But the
quality.
Only thing, yeah, exactly. The only thing I would focus on in terms of putting a lot of time into it is a video that's going to be like a staple portion of your brand. So if you're going to create like an About Us or like an Our Story video that's going to be really, really emotional about how you got started, things like that, you've seen them, that's going to live on your website for years, then something like that you can probably invest more time into. But in terms of just creating a video about like these 15-minute interviews and kind of short videos that you just need a lot of, you have to, at some point, you have to sacrifice the actual perfection of the video for the volume. And, quality of the content is pretty subjective, so everyone kind of has a different view of what they like. So ultimately, you're spending time creating content or putting perfection into content, and people may not really care, So you want to make sure that there's kind of a volume aspect to what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So then number 5, the last thing is you could learn how to edit yourself, which, once again, I really don't recommend that you do this, especially if you're running a small business. But if you work within a marketing company or you work on a marketing team, then that's an awesome skill that you can provide your business owner or kind of like the business that you're working for, because those two things go hand in hand. So the creation of the content and the distribution of it that's marketing in a nutshell. So
I have an in-house person, my daughter.
Yeah.
She's an expert at, she's 16 years old.
Okay.
And she's very good at video editing.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's a very important skill to have. We use all the Adobe products too, so it's not like it's something that you can't learn. I'm self-taught, so the amount of tutorials and things that you can figure out on the internet is like everything that you can think of.
Whatever you need to learn, you can learn on your own.
Yeah,
and I
pretty
think
much.
that's the part that most people forget about it. In fact, a long time ago, I learned Audacity, which is mainly for audio, is what I used it for.
Audio.
So I would do my seminars, and then I would add which means sound, some music, etc.,
Right.
fade, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really not great at it, but if I can learn it, I promise you, Spence, a lot of people can learn it as well.
Yeah, and the only thing I mean, like some business owners, they just might be in that position where they have to, and you don't necessarily have to have something that's highly edited. It could be something that's recorded on your phone, and then just add a couple of graphics, and that's your video.
Yes.
If you post that 3, 4, 5 times a week, that will work, at least in the beginning portions of
Well,
your
again, it's a
business.
reminder, which I think people forget. Being on the top of people's mind is critical in marketing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, really, not just everyone's mind, but your customer's mind, too. So...
Sorry, I should say customers' mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the goal here, too, is we want to make sure that the content that we're creating has some sort of value to the actual consumer
Correct.
that is going to buy from us.
Absolutely.
Because there's really no point of getting attention from people that you're probably not going to convert into customers anyway.
Yeah, I thought people should be smart enough already about that. But yes,
Well,
you're right.
most
Now
people
some
aren't.
people don't pay
Yeah,
attention to that.
Most people probably wouldn't even know that. But yeah, those are the kind of the 5 things that I would recommend. Like I said, number 5, I don't really say that every business owner should do that. I've met some entrepreneurs that just love creating content, like me, even though their business isn't in creative services.
Correct.
It's in something completely different.
Yes.
They just like doing that aspect of it. But at a certain point, if you're looking to grow and kind of scale a business, it's something that should really be delegated and kind of outsourced. Either that to an internal team member or to an agency that's effective at it.
At the end of the day, dollars per hour, right? Your time is valued at some number.
Pretty much, yeah.
Regardless of who you are.
Right.
I mean, whether you are Bill Gates or just starting out, your value of time is there. And if you can justify it, great. But if you can't justify it, then you're not being smart about using your time wisely. I mean,
Right.
I have a friend who earns $1 million a month, right? I mean, this person obviously isn't going to spend all his time doing content creation because that's not his business.
Right.
Okay, so he has to balance it out. And that's, I think, the part. Now, he still records audios and videos, but those are designed to keep promoting what he's doing without spending all the time doing the content creation as well.
Yeah, I would even go as far as to say if you're at that level where you're making that kind of money, then you shouldn't even be creating the ideas for your content.
Not the ideas, but you have to be the face of it.
Yeah, you have to be the face of it. But you'll see sometimes, kind of like the mid-level portion, where we have a lot of clients that they use us to actually create it all, but they're still the ones coming up with the ideas as far as what they want to create, the scripts necessary. So that is a time-consuming element too, in terms of, okay, what kind of a direction are we going to take the brand? And some business owners may never want to let that go because that's exactly what represents them. But then we have clients as well where it's just like, hey, I don't really care what's posted. You just do your thing, and then when you need me to record, you let me know, and then we'll film it all, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's with those kind of people, and you have to kind of be the judge in your own scenario in terms of, okay, am I at the level yet where all I really need to do is just hop on camera, be the face because it's going to sell, and then have someone else write the scripts, have someone else produce it all, and take care of all the branding for you. So
wow, this is all good information, and I'm so glad you mentioned, just to recap, the 3 E's. So I like those 3 E's: emotional, entertainment, and educational value.
Right.
And you also mentioned the 5 different things that people should keep in mind. But the main part, I think, which I think people need to really grasp is content is the way to get your message and people's attention. And if you can do in terms of value of the message, people will obviously feel like, and I think there are 3 questions every prospect is asking before they buy. The first is, why should I buy from you? First one is, why should I buy the product or service you are selling?
Right.
Second is, why should I buy from you compared to other people? And the third is, why should I buy now? And if we can have the message combining with all these 3, our content can start creating the value in people's mind, and eventually those customers are like, Spence is the person I should buy from.
Right.
And they see your name and different messages, and it's like, I think what he says makes sense to me, and I should use his services.
Oh, yeah.
So great, fantastic. Any way people can get in touch with you, Spence?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I probably won't promote my actual personal
No, go ahead.
number.
Whatever number you want.
Sure. Okay. I'll just throw my cell out there. 248-933-3036. Email is also a great option. compsbusiness@gmail.com. Those are probably the top 2.
What's your website if you want people to go to?
phase2multimedia.com.
How do you spell that?
PHASE, and then the number 2, and then multimedia. So
phase2multimedia.com.
Yep.
See, again, I have no problems promoting. This is part of promoting people.
Sure.
I want
get it.
people to get the message out, and if they want to contact, they know how to get hold of you.
Right.
At the end of the day, we are all doing business. We are trying to promote and help each other.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reason I'm doing this as well. Thanks again for coming. I really appreciate you doing it. I'm sure you got some good tips about creating content and how to actually engage people, because that's the key. If you can engage enough people, they will pay attention to your message and eventually be your customer. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.